There are games that are primarily focused on gameplay, where the mechanics define the player's experience. Then there are games that aim to create an immersive world, drawing players deeply into their setting and narratives. However, these elements are not easily divided into neat percentages. They're interconnected and vary significantly from player to player. Just as with any art form, the subjective experience of a game, whether it be through gameplay, world building, or a combination of both, can differ widely. In an ideal scenario, we would have objective metrics to assess how these two aspects, pure gameplay and world building, interact to create a meaningful experience. Yet, achieving this balance can be elusive. A game might be considered complete from a developer's perspective or by some players, but it may not resonate with everyone. Attempting to find a universally accepted standard for success is challenging, but we can take a collective experience, the general impression left on many players, as a benchmark to judge whether a game is good or bad. This review, like any, is a part of that collective experience, combining my personal impressions with broader feedback from other players. This lengthy introduction serves to underscore my belief that Darkwood is one of those games that successfully weaves together atmosphere, world building, and immersive gameplay to create a truly complete experience. I've mentioned Darkwood in previous reviews as a prime example of atmospheric design done right, yet I had never actually completed the game until now. While I was initially captivated by its design, circumstances prevented me from dedicating the time needed to fully engage with it. As a final note here, given the game's age, I will likely spoil the story here. The darkness of the woods thickens around us as we begin as the Doctor, a character trapped in the forest, torn between healing the land's infection and finding a way out. The encroaching madness of the forest seems to have affected him deeply. Little is revealed about his backstory. This initial segment serves as a tutorial during which the Doctor finds us, the protagonist, and drags us back to his house. After taking a key from us, our supposed ticket out of the forest. He injects us with a substance, seemingly unaware of the true way out. Following a brief segment of torture aimed at extracting information, we awaken as the real protagonist, embarking on our journey of survival and insanity in the Twisted Forest. From the outset, it's clear that Darkwood will not provide a straightforward path to uncovering its secrets. The atmospheric setup in the prologue, combined with the beautifully crafted graphical style, enhances this aura of mystery. The game feels enveloped in a fog reminiscent of Silent Hill, though this fog is more about the oppressive confusion surrounding us than a physical barrier. How deeply we delve into the game's story depends on our approach, choices, and attention to detail. While Darkwood may not have graphics you'd expect out of a modern game, its artistic vision is very fitting. The top-down perspective, lightning effects, and somber color palette work in harmony to convey the oppressive atmosphere of the forest consumed by insanity. These graphics align perfectly with the game's themes, and the lack of shortcuts in its design speaks to the developer's commitment to their vision. The concept art is particularly striking, brimming with atmosphere and featuring mysterious characters that enhance the narrative. But the audio design is where Darkwood truly excels. The moody soundtrack sets the tone without overwhelming the player, while the sound effects, creaking, growls, footsteps, and more create an immersive experience that is masterfully executed. The interplay between the soundtrack and sound effects, alongside the graphical presentation, works really well for the game. The effort invested in creating this experience is more than evident. The gameplay is rather straightforward. You navigate an open world, balancing two primary loops: exploring during the day and surviving the night. The game instills a sense of dread as night approaches. Survival outside your hideout is impossible. Your hideout is equipped with a generator that provides essential light, as darkness not only symbolizes imminent danger, but is danger. Your hideout has an oven that releases a substance that is vapors, enabling you to survive the night without being consumed by the forest's horrors. However, this does not guarantee safety from nighttime attacks. Your only defense are fire, steel, and furniture, apparently. It's also interesting that you don't need to worry about traditional survival mechanics like sleep, food, or water. The protagonist seems to be beyond these basic needs, further indicating that something might be wrong here. Most likely this has to do with cutting down the amount of mechanics in the game as well, but it also has an in-game lore explanation. The oven can extract further substance from local sources, allowing you to unlock special abilities. However, these also come with drawbacks. For instance, you might gain the ability to become invisible or emit a scream to scare off nearby monsters, but these abilities are counterbalanced by disadvantages like dealing less damage or being less accurate with firearms. Early in the game, knowing the time is crucial, you must prepare for nightfall by observing the sun's position and other environmental cues. Once night falls, you should be armed and barricaded, ready for whatever threats the forest may unleash. Preparation relies on scavenging for resources: wood, nails, fuel, matches, and traps. Your very first night serves as an introduction, with minimal events but enough eerie noises to set the tone. On the first morning, you meet the Wolfman, the first trader and quest giver. His name is fitting. He appears as a man with wolf-like features. He offers to help you retrieve the key you lost, but only if you assist him in return. Trading with NPCs operates on a reputation system. You gain reputation points by surviving the night, which you can use to trade for valuable items. The characters you encounter are enigmatic. I approach the game by immersing myself in its world, trying to understand the motivations of each character. The Wolfman seems opportunistic, viewing our presence as a potential advantage. He has a gun, but chooses not to shoot us, perhaps weighing the risks and rewards of our situation. Generally, Darkwood allows for open-ended choices. You can kill NPCs if you wish, influencing your path forward significantly. On the second morning, you encounter the trader, an unusual figure merged with a hazmat suit who communicates through writing. Unlike the others, he expresses genuine concern for the protagonist, offering advice and exhibiting relief when you actually survive. His words, "We have to stick together, brother," and "The forest wants to devour you, you're heading straight into its jaws," prove prophetic as the story unfolds. In any case, our first goal is to check on the exit. Since the doctor has the key, we suspect that our chances of escape are dwindling. Heading into the underground passage near our initial hideout, we discover that the door remains unopened, confirming that the doctor is still unaware of the exit's location. The first few nights pass without incident, but it soon becomes clear that the barricaded windows and furniture alone won't keep us safe. The mutants, or savages as the game calls them, will actively break down barricaded doors and windows to attack. As the nights progress, the enemies will develop even more strategies to overcome our defenses. For now, in the Dry Meadows, our barricaded windows and doors, along with a few traps, seem to be sufficient to hold them at bay. Though I have little faith in the Wolfman, he remains our only lead. The Dry Meadows feel like a test, a rite of passage to prove to him that we are more than mere meat, as he likes to call us. The area is not as desolate as it initially appears. Remnants of houses, farms, and other structures dot the ever-expanding forest. We find plenty of materials and fuel for our needs and even manage to exchange a few items with the trader. Our first acquisition is a watch, which will aid our future explorations. But on the third night, everything changes. I foolishly believed that the stacked furniture at the door would keep us safe. In the dead of the night, we hear them. A horrifying realization. Mutants are trying to force their way in. We desperately push against the door. But in the chaos, we turn to see a figure sitting on our bed, begging us to go home. This moment cost us dearly. Two dogs surge into our hideout, we fight tooth and nail, barely surviving as the first rays of sunlight pierce through the barricaded windows. It's a narrow escape, but even if we succumb, will the forest truly grant us death? The nights are growing ever more dangerous, and the mutants bolder. This is our first lesson in the harsh realities of Darkwood combat. We are no fighter, nor are we meant to be. Fighting is our last resort. We must focus on running, hiding, and outsmarting our enemies. If we try to prevail through brute force, the forest will overwhelm and consume us. We need to be more strategic in our preparations for the night. More traps, more molotovs, more fire, anything to keep us safe while the creatures of the night suffer. We've noticed that the Wolfman possesses a gun, but we realize we're far from having anything similar ourselves yet. Even if we were to find a firearm, when would we dare to spend a bullet we can scarcely replace? Despite these challenges, we've made significant progress in the Dry Meadows, exploring new locations and growing bold enough to venture into the silent forest to prove to the Wolfman that we are indeed more than just meat. On the 5th day, we feel confident enough to make the journey. We gather everything we can carry, mostly weapons, traps and fuel, and set off with the hope of finding a new hideout. Our goal is to visit the Wolfman as soon as possible to piece together any information that might help us recover the key and escape the forest. The path to the silent forest is nearly overgrown with trees. The sunlight struggles to pierce the dense canopy. We come across an abandoned house infested with bugs, its floors covered in strange, pulsating growths. Moving through them makes us uneasy and even causes us pain. Inside we find a generator and an oven, but everything is broken and sickly. We burn some of the growths with a Molotov cocktail, trying to clear a way through the house. Suddenly, a savage leaps from the shadows. We fight back desperately, but his final blow sends us crashing to the ground. Is this it? Apparently not. We wake up back at the house with no memory of how we got there. Some of our items are missing, but we seem relatively unscathed. The forest does not grant us death, at least not on this difficulty level. On normal, the penalties are forgiving. We drop some items and respawn at the last hideout we used. However, on higher difficulty levels, death can be permanent. On hard, our lives are limited, making it a semi-Iron Man experience, while Nightmare mode is a true Iron Man run. This system in Darkwood draws inspiration from mechanics that are not typically found in survival horror games. Its death system resembles that of an ARPG, particularly reminiscent of Diablo 2, where players can return to the site of their demise to reclaim lost items. Is this a good system? Yes, it functions effectively within Darkwood, allowing for a balance between challenge and recovery. While I don't view it as a drawback, I can see how a different approach, like the one in the game Outward, where death randomly relocates you on the map, could have enhanced the game's tension. That mechanic would add an extra layer of urgency to return to your hideout or escape. Generally, the Iron Man mode aligns well with the game's lore, presenting a high-stakes experience. However, I found myself unprepared to fully invest the time required to engage with that effectively. The following day we return, defeat the mutant, and retrieve our belongings. The Silent Forest awaits us, and it's time to visit the Wolfman. When we find him, he congratulates us and points us towards the path leading to the village. He instructs us to seek out the hag who smells of chickens, the chicken lady, who has crucial information to share. He warns us, though, to remain vigilant, as she possesses something behind a locked door that does not belong to her. In exchange for our key, he asks us for the key to that door. It's another vague lead, but it's all we've got to go on. Once we settled into our new hideout in the Silent Forest, we focus on fortifying it. Besides the usual ways of improving hideouts, they do offer some unique features. For example, we can repair a well for free daily healing and upgrade our workbench provided we have the materials. This will allow us to craft more and better items. We've also gathered enough of the substance to craft our first injection, a gameplay mechanic that will grant us additional skills. After taking the injection, we doze off for the first time and dream of a door and an exit. The first ability we actually take is Moth, which allows us to heal once a day when standing next to a light source. However, This means we must stay close to the light at night, as the shadows will attract monsters and we won't be able to stay long in them without dying. The nights in the Silent Forest grow increasingly dangerous, with mutant attacks escalating and our scavenged resources dwindling. Seeking answers, we decide to visit the village mentioned by the Wolfman, hoping to uncover information about the Doctor and the elusive key. While I previously discussed the open-ended nature of Darkwood and its consequences, I might have underestimated the game's complexity, especially since you're playing on a single save file, leaving no room for trial and error. As we explore the village, we hear whispers of the pretty lady and the chicken lady. Through a series of smaller quests, we manage to acquire the key to bypass the chicken lady and confront the pretty lady. However, upon meeting her, we're taken aback. She's anything but beautiful. Instead, she appears as a grotesque, suffering mass. In what I thought was a compassionate decision, I choose to end her suffering with a single strike. This moment marks a turning point in my playthrough, and this is where my playthrough fell apart. So, this review is over. Thanks for watching. Great game. Okay, not really, no. Initially, I believed this choice had derailed my progress, but further exploration revealed paths forward, albeit through more violence. After actually taking the chicken lady's life as well, we uncovered notes from the Doctor detailing his location. When we return to Wolfman, however, we face the consequences of our actions. He's furious and refuses to speak with us. It's time to weigh our options. Most characters we've encountered, except perhaps the trader, are solely focused on their own survival, devoid of empathy. Given Wolfman's opportunistic nature and the impossibility of mending our relationship, we make a drastic choice. We craft a Molotov cocktail and make short work of him, seizing his rifle. This decision may aid our journey, and perhaps, in a twisted way, we've done a good deed in the long run. In any case, it seems that the way forward is clear. We must venture into the old forest to confront the Doctor, but before we dive into that, let me share a glimpse of what a typical night in the Silent Forest looks like. Or rather, one of my brilliant performances. Despite being armed and equipped with a pistol, the nights are growing increasingly treacherous. Well played, right? That was probably one of the funniest nights I've experienced. Even with all my preparations, my own traps seemed to work just as well on me. We head towards the old forest, gathering our supplies, weapons, and fuel for the journey. A brand new hideout awaits us, along with the need to make it as safe as possible. While I've read that many players consider this the most dangerous hideout, I found it quite manageable with my setup. Moreover, by the time we reach the old forest, at least on normal difficulty, the scarcity of resources seems to diminish rapidly. Surviving a night earns you significant reputation, and the trader consistently offers one pistol magazine each day. This allows you to stockpile ammunition quickly, making many encounters easier, if not trivial. The old forest has treated us surprisingly well. More accurately, the hideout is secure enough for us to survive through the nights. We've explored the surrounding areas, but many locations remain incomplete due to their connection to side quests. For instance, in one of our mushroom-induced dreams we discover a black box. The Wolfman informs us that this box requires a key, which can be found in the church within the old forest. However, even after locating the key ourselves, we can't open the box without the Wolfman's assistance. Thus, the area becomes merely another scavenging ground for us. After further preparations and searching the Doctor's house for clues, the time comes to confront the Doctor at his hideout. Having embraced a more ruthless approach, I decide to take revenge on him. We strike him down and seize the key. Now, all that remains is to backtrack to the Dry Meadow and navigate the underground tunnels. We spend another night in our hideout in the old forest. In the morning, we gather everything we can carry, uncertain of what awaits us beyond the door. If we keep moving, we should have enough time to return to the tunnel from the old forest. The underground passage is unchanged, but as we pass through the door, we encounter several bodies with small holes in their heads. They have clearly been shot. The damp passage leads us to another area of the forest, a swamp. There's a hideout here too, marking the beginning of the second and final chapter of the game. Upon searching the hideout, we discover documents detailing an expedition into the forest, along with clues about the giant being, a talking tree in a nearby village. Unfortunately, the path to the tree is flooded, so we need to find oxygen tanks and repair a compressor at our hideout to fill them up before we can reach it. As I've mentioned, the unique adventures we've had in the swamp are what make this experience truly remarkable, so I'll keep the spoilers to a minimum. After our first night in the hideout, we meet a mysterious trader known only as the Three. We receive little explanation from him, her, them, whatever, but the next morning we find the initial trader dead outside the hideout. Someone had carved Liar into his gas mask. He also had a key. Did he possess it all along? Did he truly lie? Did we kill him in a rage we can't remember? Or was it the new trader? These questions remain unanswered. In any case, with the death of a trader, we lost the only person that was somewhat well-meaning towards us. Regardless, after more scavenging and side quests, we finally reach the tree. It appears to be an amalgamation of bodies, humans and beasts, constantly evolving and trapped in a state of chaotic consciousness. Direct communication is impossible. However, a nearby cripple informs us of a basement. Inside we find the tree's roots, which we manage to set ablaze, engulfing the whole tree in flames. The protagonist observes that the tree should be burned down by morning, finally clearing our path. We head back to our hideout for what we hope is our final night. It truly is a final night, as we endure an onslaught on our hideout, with screams outside and radio messages questioning our actions. A massive blaze engulfs the radio in front of us. The being seems to communicate through radio waves. In the morning, we pass through the passage once more. The tree is gone, and the way is clear. We traverse streets lined with bodies, those who tried to escape the forest and failed, until we finally reach home. Exhausted, we enter our apartment, greet our dog, remove our coat, and collapse into bed. It's over. The experience is bittersweet, almost too good to be true. Reflecting on my time with Darkwood, I can confidently say that it's a masterpiece of atmospheric design and immersive gameplay. Heavily inspired by classic survival horror games, it requires patience and determination to piece together the narrative. This bittersweet ending resonates with me. I'm generally invested in the story, but sometimes find it tedious to connect every document into a coherent, albeit potentially unreliable narrative. For some, the mystery lies in the journey of uncovering the truth. Darkwood masterfully intertwines symbolism and horror to craft an unsettling experience that lingers with players. The oppressive forest itself becomes a powerful symbol of madness, mirroring the protagonist's psychological unraveling as hidden truths emerge. Its twisted landscape, with gnarled trees and suffocating darkness, embodies the unknown, evoking profound feelings of isolation and dread. The grotesque characters encountered along the journey, such as the Wolfman and the Chicken Lady, reflect humanity's moral decay in the face of survival, compelling players to confront their own ethical choices. This fusion of atmospheric horror and rich symbolism transforms the forest from a mere setting into a living entity that haunts and challenges, positioning Darkwood as a game that raises more questions than it answers, often posing existential dilemmas that defy easy resolution. Thinking back on my personal experience in Darkwood, I struggle to find any negatives, so much so that I can't identify any specific improvements I would recommend. This sentiment is echoed in the Steam reviews as well, where negative feedback is rare and often stems from complaints about the combat, which is a deliberate design choice to prevent mindless Rambo tactics in the forest. If you have a PC and enjoy games, there's no reason to not play this one. The only minor gripe I can think of are moments like the chest and the Wolfman, While I understand that this is part of a side quest, I see no reason to not being able to open a chest if I have the key myself, even if Wolfman is dead. But these are all minor things which I wouldn't hold against the general experience. Now, I'm about to reveal major spoilers. There's an excellent Steam guide that details the entire story, which I recommend checking out instead of recounting everything here. I'll post that in the pinned comment, as it's crucial to convey my experience and my interpretations of the narrative. In any case, it seems we've achieved the bad ending, revealing that it was all a dream and that the protagonist was manipulated by a mysterious being all along. The Trader, essentially a replica of ourselves created by the white substance permeating the forest, serves as a warning. The forest wants to devour you. You're heading straight into its jaws. I suspect that if I hadn't made the critical mistake of killing certain NPCs, I would have unraveled more about the narrative. I recommend playing more peacefully on your first attempt to gather as much information as possible. From what I've pieced together, you were a part of an expedition sent into the forest, which was attacked by savages, overwhelming your camp. The tunnels function as an access point for expeditions to monitor the forest. You've somehow escaped and are now trying to find a way out. The tree appears to be a vast, eldritch entity that fell into the valley, infecting the woods and causing physical and mental mutations. This being can form imperfect replicas by melding existing organisms. For example, the Trader is a version of the protagonist, while the Wolfman combines traits of a hunter and a dog trophy. If I were a betting man, I'd say this concept was inspired by Stanislav Lem's Solaris, where a planet creates crude replicas of people and equipment based on the thoughts of the scientists. In Solaris, the main character, Calvin, encounters a living being that reconstructs his long-lost lover, showcasing the tragic implications of such creations. This is especially apparent in Tarkovsky's film adaptation of the same book. While not identical, the parallels with Darkwood are intriguing. Your final interactions with the tree are also open to interpretation, though there are two major endings, both end tragically, reinforcing the idea that nothing and no one can be trusted. It's ambiguous whether you're fused with the tree or if you can wake up from its influence. This story invites players to fill in the blanks themselves. In conclusion, Darkwood presents a gripping blend of survival horror and moral complexity. Every choice carries weight, and the game's unforgiving nature ensures that each action can lead to unforeseen consequences. It's a game that keeps you on your toes, and despite its dark twists, it offers a compelling experience well worth diving into. So in this case, I would recommend this game to everyone. So, until next time, and remember, respect the woods.